That afternoon, I called my son, feigning illness, telling him I was turning in early. Near midnight, a soft click of the lock, so faint only a truly awake ear could catch it, pierced the silence. He stepped into the darkness, not bothering to call my name. I lay perfectly still on the sofa, eyes barely slits, listening as his footsteps led directly to my bedroom. A quick check, then back. A tiny, almost imperceptible click as something slid into my coat pocket. His voice, a mere whisper into his phone, confirmed my fears. It's done. Call the police tomorrow morning. I didn't move a muscle. That was when everything truly began. There's a drawer in my bedroom nightstand, one I haven't opened in 3 weeks. It's the same nightstand Margaret and I brought into this house 30 years ago. The drawer sticks in the cold, the wood swollen from countless Richmond winters. You need both hands, a patient firmness that Margaret used to tease me about. You treat that drawer like it owes you something, Arthur. She'd laugh from the doorway as I wrestled with it each morning. Inside, wrapped in old flannel, is a stone, small enough to cup in my palm, smooth on one side, rough on the other, the color of wet river clay in the fading light. Held just right, its curve and narrow top, widening base, make it look almost exactly like a heart. Thomas was 8 that autumn when he found it. We'd driven to Belle Isle on a crisp Saturday morning, the 3 of us, Margaret, Thomas, and me. Like so many Richmond families when the leaves turn and the James River catches the light, making you feel, however briefly, that everything in the world is perfect. Thomas, sneakers perpetually untied, hair sticking up at the back, had spent the morning running ahead. "Thomas, slow down," Margaret called, her hand tucked into my arm. "I'm fine, Mom," he'd shout back, already 20 yards ahead, scrambling towards the riverbank, where smooth stones gathered. Margaret shook her head, smiling. "He has your energy," she said. "He has your stubbornness," I countered. She laughed, leaning into my shoulder. For a moment, I felt so full, of gratitude perhaps, or just the simple, uncomplicated happiness of an ordinary Saturday, that words would have failed me. We found him crouching at the water's edge, his jeans already damp, turning stones with the intense concentration of a boy convinced this was the world's most important task. He looked up when he heard us. "Dad," he said, holding something out. "Look at this one." It sat in his small palm, wet from the river, catching the October light. "It looks like a heart," I said. He nodded, serious, as only an 8-year-old can be when something truly matters. "You should keep it," he told me. "I found it for you." I took it, turning it over, smooth, cool against my skin, heavier than it looked. "Thank you, buddy," I managed, my throat tighter than I expected. I have kept that stone in its flannel cloth in the nightstand drawer for 27 years. Thomas grew up, as children do, in increments so subtle you barely notice, until one day you look across the dinner table and realize the boy who handed you heart-shaped stones is now a man with a firm handshake and strong opinions on things you never thought to have opinions about. He was sharp, driven, the kind of young man who set a goal and pursued it with a focus that filled me with that particular parental pride, a mix of awe and recognition, seeing something of yourself in someone you love. He studied healthcare administration, graduated near the top of his class, and landed an entry-level position at a hospital network in Washington, D.C. The day he got the offer, he called me from the parking lot. I could hear the wind, the distant traffic, and beneath it all, his shallow, fast breathing. "Dad," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "They picked me." I sat at the kitchen table, my eyes stinging with unexpected happiness. "Tell me everything," I urged. He talked for 20 minutes, words tumbling out, his voice rising and falling with an excitement so genuine it pulled me back to Belle Isle, to a boy with untied sneakers, holding out a stone like the finest treasure. When we finally hung up, I pressed my hands flat against the table and allowed myself to cry for a minute. The good kind of crying, from a chest too full to hold everything inside. That was 7 years ago. I've replayed that phone call countless times since that December night, since I lay on the sofa in the dark, listening to my son move through my house like a stranger. I've asked myself again and again if I missed something in that parking lot conversation. if what I heard as pure joy was something more complicated. If the trembling in his voice wasn't excitement at all, but the first faint crack of a man who had just glimpsed the life he wanted and was already, deep down, afraid he could never truly afford it. I don't have a clean answer. What I have is a stone in a drawer and a son I thought I knew. Looking back, I can pinpoint almost exactly when things began to shift. It was late August of last year, though it feels much longer, when Thomas started coming by the house more often. At first, I told myself it was a good thing. He had always been busy, pulled in several directions between work, Eleanor, and the life they were building in their townhouse. So, when he began stopping by 2, sometimes 3 times a week, I didn't question it. I was glad. I made coffee, pulled out Margaret's good cups, and sat across from my son at the kitchen table, feeling for the first time in a long while like something in my life was moving toward me instead of away. I should have paid closer attention to where his eyes went when he thought I wasn't looking. Thomas had always been good with people, possessing his mother's ability to warm a room just by entering it, a quality I admired, but never quite had myself. But there's a difference between being good with people and being truly open. The house settled around me, the soft hum of pipes, the furnace clicking on, the quiet exhalations of an old building in the cold. I sat very still. Then something unexpected happened, something I couldn't have predicted. A long-maintained tension, a weight I'd carried without fully realizing it. The tension of a man hoping against accumulating evidence that the person he loves hasn't become what the evidence suggests. Quietly let go. Not relief, not peace, just the particular stillness that comes when you stop fighting the truth and let it settle into its proper place. I straightened in the chair, pulled the phone toward me, and began to move. I moved through the house the way I used to move through a difficult audit, slowly, methodically, starting at the beginning and working forward, skipping nothing, assuming nothing was unimportant, just because it seemed small. In 32 years of hospital billing, I'd learned that seemingly insignificant details are often the ones that matter most. A transposed digit, a date off by a day, a signature that doesn't quite match. The truth hides in the small things, and it doesn't reveal itself to those moving too fast to look carefully. I started with the prescription bottle. I placed it on the kitchen counter under the overhead light, the brightest in the house, the one Margaret had insisted on during our renovation, because she couldn't cook properly if she couldn't see properly. I photographed it from every angle, top, bottom, both sides, the partially removed label with its crescent of text, the hospital logo fragment visible along the lower edge. I photographed it next to a ruler for scale, and the cap separately, noting a small, deliberate scratch along the threading, the kind that appears when someone opens a safety-sealed bottle without using their hands. Next, the coat. I carried the blue wool coat from the rack to the kitchen table and laid it flat. I photographed it whole, then the right pocket, then the inside, where the lining had stretched slightly at the bottom, as if something heavier than a tissue or receipt had been pushed into it. I photographed the stretch from 2 angles. It was a detail that would mean nothing to someone unfamiliar with fabric, and everything to someone examining evidence of tampering. The dispensing form came next. I laid it beside my actual driver's license and photographed both simultaneously. The forged signature on the left, my genuine one on the ID on the right. Side by side. The difference was clear if you knew what to look for. The backward lean of my capital A was slightly more pronounced in the forgery. The loop of the P closed at a different angle. Whoever had copied my signature had studied it well, but studying a signature and inhabiting it are 2 different things. The difference showed in the places where the pen had hesitated, tiny, nearly invisible pauses in the ink flow that a forensic document examiner would easily identify. I photographed those hesitation marks close enough that my phone camera had to refocus twice to capture them clearly. Then, I spread the Harbor Ridge loan agreement across the table and photographed every page, the borrower information with my name and identification numbers, the loan terms, the signature page, and the final page listing the outstanding balance of $22,400 in bold type. I photographed the bank statements with their columns of unauthorized transactions, the overdraft notices, and the payment demand letters, each dated and legible. It took 40 minutes. By the time I finished, my lower back ached from bending over the table, and my hands had developed a fine tremor, not from fear, but from sustained concentration, the same tremor I used to get at the end of a long audit, when the work was done and the body was finally allowed to register how hard it had been working. I straightened up, rolled my shoulders, and looked at what I had assembled. 17 photographs on my phone. Every piece of evidence documented, dated by the phone's automatic timestamp, preserved in a form that existed independently of the physical objects. Even if someone removed the bottle, the form, and the documents from this house, the photographs would remain. Thomas had planned for me to be the one without documentation. I was going to be the one with more of it than anyone expected. I picked up the phone, pulled up the number for the Richmond Police Department's non-emergency line, a number I had never called in 65 years of living in this city, and sincerely hoped never to need again after tonight. The non-emergency line exists for situations requiring police attention but not an immediate emergency response. Situations where a citizen needs to report something, document something, put something on the official record before it becomes something larger. Exactly the kind of situation I was in. It rang twice. Richmond Police Non-Emergency Line. This is Officer Ramirez. Her voice was professional. Good, he said. Arthur. Under Virginia Code 18.2, Non-186.3. Identity theft of this scale is a Class 5 felony. The forged documents add a separate charge under 18.2172. Given the amount and your son's cooperation, the DA will likely pursue a structured plea agreement, a supervised sentence, a treatment program, and a restitution order covering everything taken from you. You are protected as the victim of record. The Harbor Ridge debt cannot follow you. My chest loosened by 1 full degree. But what do I need to do today? I asked. Today, you rest, Gerald said. You've already done everything right. Detective Garner called again at 11:17 a.m. to confirm that Thomas had entered a formal cooperation agreement with the DA's office and that Harbor Ridge had been referred to the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. You did everything correctly, Mr. Pendleton, he said. That's not always easy in a situation like this. I told him I appreciated it, and I meant every word. When I set the phone down, I noticed my hands were completely steady. The machinery of consequence was in motion now. Not mine to drive, not mine to stop. Mine only to witness and to survive. I picked up my coffee from the counter. It had gone cold. I drank it anyway, standing at the kitchen window, watching the gray December sky hold its shape above the bare oak tree. Move toward morning, I had told myself the night before. This was morning, and I was still here. The decision arrived quietly on the morning of December 18th. I was standing in the hallway outside the spare bedroom, holding a box of Margaret's old watercolor supplies, when the thought came without announcement. I do not have to stay here. Not a question, not a permission slip, simply a fact. I called Marcia Higgins. She arrived at 10 with a thermos of coffee and the expression she always wore when she was prepared to be useful. Chin slightly lifted, eyes already reading the room. 63 years old, silver-haired, deliberate in everything she did. We had known each other since our early 30s at Richmond General, and she had never once required me to explain myself before she decided to show up. You already know what you want to do, she said after I had talked through everything. The voicemail from Garner, the call with Gerald Foss, the oak tree in the backyard. You called me because you needed someone to hear you say it out loud. Carytown, I said. She nodded, as if she had known before I did. By December 20th, I had walked through 3 apartments with Marcia, asking the questions I forgot to ask. The third one, on Elwood Avenue, had south-facing windows and hardwood floors, the color of pale honey. On the wall of the smaller bedroom, a previous tenant had left a single wooden shelf bracket mounted crookedly, with a small chip in the plaster beneath it. I stood looking at it longer than was rational. This one, I said. I signed the lease that afternoon. Thomas called on December 23rd from a supervised facility. His voice was quiet and stripped of performance. He said, I just needed you to know I'm going to try to be someone worth forgiving. My throat tightened. I know, I said. On December 26th, I carried the last box out myself, locked the door, and drove toward Carytown. My new Carytown apartment welcomed me with warm winter sunlight. Placing the heart-shaped stone Thomas gave me at age 8 on the windowsill, I understood some things must be let go. Surviving this abandonment taught me a bitter lesson. Blind trust without alertness makes you an accomplice to crime. Generosity given without discernment is not a virtue. It is an open door. May God forgive my son's transgressions and grant me strength to move forward. To me, family is priceless. But justice and truth must always come first. A toxic relationship, even one bound by blood, must be severed for self-protection. This painful family betrayal is just a fraction of my life's broader family story. Each of us possesses a unique family story. But do not let yours transform into a family story filled with regret and tragedy because of naive credulity. Share your thoughts in the comments, share this video, and subscribe to Revenge Dad for more sophisticated, profound lessons. Thank you so much for patiently following this journey until the very last seconds. Upcoming stories on this channel will feature some fictionalized, dramatized elements strictly for educational purposes, raising awareness and extracting vital life lessons. If this content does not align with your personal preferences, feel free to swipe away and choose another more suitable video. However, if you find a deep connection here, please leave a comment so we can discuss it.